It's time to leave your worries outside and join us here in the Treehouse. I'm Dan O'Malley, along with Trey Trenholm. And Trey, I don't know if you were noticing our sweet guest's very excited face as the William Orbit-ish, not actual, but ish intro, so we don't get sued. When the music came on, Heather, your face lit up.
That is such a core memory for me in my life, that sound, and the two of you, your voices. So the fact that I'm in the Treehouse, it is a dream come true right now. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So this is a very interesting tale. It's a very interesting turn of situations and events. Mm-hmm. The very short, abbreviated version is, many years ago, Heather McKinney here from Sinisterhood.
Yeah.
The Sinisterhood Podcast, which can be found everywhere and in a lot more places with a lot more success than the Treehouse. But eventually we may get there. Heather is from Sinisterhood. But before she did that, many, many years ago, she was what our old radio host, Russ Martin, would refer to as a lowly listener.
Just a lowly listener.
Just a lowly listener growing up in Dallas, listening to me and Trey and Russ and everybody else make absolute asses of ourselves on the radio day in, day out. And she was there. Trey, she was there for all of it until eventually she moves to Chicago, misses Dallas, keeps listening to the show on the .fm website so she feels connected to home. And then eventually moves back because she missed us so much. And then, and this is where, facts get fuzzy, but screw it. Then she restocks the show after we get laid off on the radio and finds us in podcast form and says, "Hey, Dan, I'm crazy successful in podcasting. You need help."
I was like, "Oh no, Dan, are you okay?" Not at all. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm excited that the show is digital because now I don't have to download MP3s to my little iPod mini like I used to back in the day when I was in college and had to listen to you on the L train on my little iPod.
I'm just glad that you had the iPod and didn't go the Zune route.
No, I did not have a Zune, but I will say I lived alone in Chicago for a while before I got a roommate in college, and I just an apartment by myself. And you just want background noise, and I didn't have cable because I was a poor college student. So I would turn you guys up pretty loud on my speaker to the point where my neighbors would kind of be like, "Do you have roommates?" And are they they're like blowing things up and drinking a lot and laughing? And I'm like, yes, I live with 5 men, and they're constantly just yelling at each other. They do have a beep button that they use in the apartment. It's weird. They won't swear out loud.
they'll destroy any number of city ordinances related to fireworks and firearms and drinking and whatnot. But heaven forbid someone drop an F-bomb.
Exactly. Yeah, they're blowing their boss up, but it's fine. But no, I listened to you guys so much and so loud that that sound of the intro music, the outro music, all of it, the whiskey cork pop. It's just core memories for me in college and high school.
You guys discussed something very briefly. You mentioned something I need to grab.
Oh, we gotta do something.
It is funny how the show open music, it became very Pavlovian for me because even after I left the show, I would hear it and you have to the general stomach acid that when that. Because I used to compare producing the show. I said, you would lay out this roadmap of, at the time 3 to 7, and stop here, we'll visit there, whatever. And then at 3:15, when Russ, started the music and cracked the mics open, you just took that sheet, crumpled it up, threw it away, and hung on for dear life.
Yeah.
And the stomach acid that would, is associated with that. And so for years, when I would hear that show open music, it would just instill this feeling of anxious dread of what's going to happen today.
It's really horrifying that for me, the Pavlovian was like, "Oh, I get to hang out with my friends," and you were like, "Oh, the abuse is about to begin."
Here's a little behind the scenes. I mean, we talked about it some, but a lot of people always thought it was kind of a bit. But most days, whether afternoons, mornings, whatever, we would be sitting there waiting. We would have, we've done our end, and then Russ would just come strolling in at 3:15 or whatever, and you never knew what kind of mood he was in. So
Mhm.
it was, and he could
Sure.
look terribly pissed off, then crack open the mics, and he's just goofy as hell, and vice versa. So it was scarring, and but yeah, a lot of stomach acid when would hear that music.
It's a lot of shared traumatic experiences.
Right? You
See,
guys
and
are
the
trauma bonded.
yeah, so the part that Trey was conveniently able to skip out on the last handful of years when we were at the Eagle. See, Trey remembers 3:15 and would keep an eye on the door because Russ is going to come in around that time. It used to be 3:05, then it would just kind of slowly creep up, then it would be like 3:20 sometimes. But then in the last few years, we'd be looking at the studio door and he just didn't walk through it at all.
Well, that's definitely different. Like, okay, well, we're going to go with the show today because Russ
Yeah.
Martin's not here. So it's just the show.
But the good news is, like Trey said, we were already really used to just scrapping whatever we thought we were going to do and just having to wing it.
Right.
But since you mentioned, the show intro, the show outro, the things that you like to hear, the things that make you feel like home.
Yeah. Why are you edging with that bottle right now? Stop.
I learned from the best, Heather.
Edging.
You have to edge
Edging, wow.
you have to edge the whiskey bottle. I would like to point out right now. It's only been 7 minutes, Heather, and you just threw out a punchline that Russ never would have got. Because he didn't know from waiting or prolonging.
Are you kidding me? God
Everything
bless.
that man did was premature, including die.
If you ever had sex with Russ Martin, you are maybe entitled to compensation. I'm just kidding. You are entitled to compensation. God help you.
That's
and
okay.
I say this as a huge Russ Martin fan who completely changed the way I do broadcasting and comedy and stuff. But I'm sure interpersonally, he was a nightmare.
Yeah, no. The last person you're right. The last person got paid pretty well.
Good. You know what? Still wasn't enough. Add a few zeros on as a.
Yeah, Dan, you're missing Heather. What's edging?
Oh, what's edging? It's where you're like.
Oh, I thought you knew, Trey.
Oh, I did. I'm just putting her on the spot.
Good
Here's what I like to do. Everybody listening, just pause it at work on your work computer. Go ahead and Google it. Turn off Safe Search, and then come back to the podcast, and then you'll know.
See, that's such a lawyer way out of things. She's like, look it up for yourself. That way I'm not culpable.
What's edging? It depends. Are we talking about using Microsoft Edge, the browser? I edge all the time.
Which is also pretty dangerous.
The AI shit is crazy.
So there's so much to cover, but I wanted to mention, so the whiskey bottle had to evolve over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if you knew, because a lot of people don't. The original whiskey bottle that we all used and I guess made famous, and a lot of people thought that it was a sound effect. No, it's an actual bottle.
Practical effect.
It was practical is always better than Foleyed. Was the previous generation of Gentleman Jack. So the previous generation of Gentleman Jack, the big handle, had a huge fat wide cork in it, and it just made that noise like you just heard really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
But then somewhere in the mid 2000s, for whatever reason, Jack Daniels changed the bottle to a screw top. And so that led to us then hoarding every single cork bottle we could get our hands on from Gentleman Jack, because the other Jack bottles didn't have it. The single barrel was a small cork, didn't sound the same. But since they changed that bottle over the years, the ones we had saved disintegrated.
Oh, no.
We even had so DJ, our old engineer / current remote engineer, even though he works at a different radio company, he was the one you saw helping us get things set up at the road show the other day. We actually sent the whiskey bottle. We opened up a trouble ticket through the corporate channels at iHeartRadio and submitted the old Gentleman Jack bottle for reconstruction. So engineering is in there. They're used to soldering things, and instead they're all huddled together in like this engineering powwow, and they're trying to figure out how to save the cork in the last remaining Gentleman Jack bottle. And they were able to do it. They were able to prolong it by like a year and a half.
Yeah,
but
that's
eventually,
a collector's item.
Eventually it went away, but we found this stuff.
I'm not going to lie. That looks like you would drink it out of a bag, a paper bag. Is it fancy? I don't drink alcohol really that much.
It's not fancy. It's not particularly tasty. It's
114 Old Granddad.
Yeah. I mean, just by the name, it doesn't exactly exude, class. It just
It
like
honestly, it sounds like an unlicensed name they would use in a movie where they're like, give me a cup of, and they really wanted to say Jack Daniels, but they couldn't get the licensing, and they're like, old granddad 114.
exactly, which means that there was 113 that got rejected beforehand.
So you know it's good, but just hold on to your tits because 117 is going to be great.
So it took a while, but we found a very comparable cork bottle. But since you mentioned it, I figured it needed to make an appearance. It
did. Thank you. You're making it feel like home. I mean, I remember where I was the first time I ever heard the show.
Oh, where was that?
and wait, what year and how old were you?
It was picture this. It was late 2004.
I like how, Trey, you just immediately went to like a mid-90s chat room, age, sex, location
ASL,
before you started. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I considering, I mean, and this is sad, but, we now, Dan would span 22 years of the show. Yeah. So there's a lot of iterations that have come and gone. And so it does help a little bit to know that what time frame we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
It's like watching Back to the Future. Where do we fall in the timeline?
That's you. Like people that were conceived while listening to the show are now old enough to drink in Trey's bar. That's what's going on here.
I just got chills and nauseous at the same time.
Sorry.
So where were you? When, where, how, all that?
Picture this, Mesquite, Texas, 2004. We were parked by the Lake Ray Hubbard part of Mesquite off of 30 and Beltline, kind of in the woods where the only part of the lake you can see is where they have like the electric plant over there. And I was dating a guy at the time. It was like not really first boyfriend, but like early dating. And he drove a really cool Nissan Altima, and we were at the lake, and we were going to like make out at the lake, but we were listening to Russ Martin, the show with you guys. And then things were escalating, and I was like such a good girl, had never done anything and didn't know what to do. And then the next show came on after you guys, and I think you were on 105.3 at the time, and I can't remember what it was on after. Was it not
Lycus?
Well, now, hang on. This is where the year comes in handy, because there was a revolving door / carousel / bumper cars of night shows.
It was like a cringy older person who, like an older guy who was it?
Tom Lycus.
That's the one. Yeah.
The guy that basically threw out every bumper sticker as if it was his own comedy makings.
If you can get him to do it, Dan does a really good Lycus impersonation.
May I please hear it?
That's going to need more whiskey.
Okay, take a couple swigs. And
I get more ass in a toilet seat. Honestly, Trey, it's been years since I've even tried that damn thing.
But seriously, I remember listening to it. Talk about like, what inspired you to be a broadcaster. You guys were so good. And it's like, man, someday I'll be as funny as them maybe. And I can have a show with my friends. And then you hear that and I'm like, well, I could at least do better than that. But as y'all show ended and the second show came on, and I was like, I'm not going to give my first hand job to fucking Tom Lycus. So I was like, absolutely not. So I just lied and was like, oh my gosh, I have a curfew and I have to get home now. And so he drove me home, and then I looked on Ask Jeeves how to do all that. And then next time we hung out,
I love how your curfew was when Inner Sandman came on. That meant Tom Lycus' show was starting.
Talk about dried up. I was like, oh no, I can't get down to this. We got to go home. I cannot make out to this.
Just the Ask Jeeves reference and thrown in there too.
Yeah, I did. I don't know. See, everybody's talking about Chat GPT so good. I was there, my dude. It was called Ask Jeeves. I asked Jeeves how to do the old fashioned, and any base thereafter. Pretty much all learned it from Jeeves.
Oh yeah. So you had Ask Jeeves, I believe. I also remember Lycos the dog.
Oh yeah. The dog would go fetch it for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, everybody thinks they're so fancy with ChatGPT.
I know, and that's what's amazing to me is now you can get like a 6-figure paying job as a quote unquote ChatGPT prompt engineer or AI prompting engineer. I'm like, that was just internet searching when we all had dial-up back in the day. We know how to do this.
Yeah, we had to dig deep. Google is so good. It doesn't even make you click anything. It just pops a thing up. It has made us all so lazy. Back when we were having to look up stuff on Ask Jeeves, you'd have to dig down and really ask a really specific, well-phrased question. So,
and if you wanted to click on page 2 of results, it was going to take about 15 minutes.
Oh, just one line after the other loading. I remember all those. Yeah, trying to look at pictures back in the day. All my Backstreet Boys pictures I was trying to download. One pixel at a time.
Or back in the day, we've talked about this a few times over the years, dial up, so videos like for like porn were completely out of the question. That would have taken forever to download. That would have been like you have to like start it in the morning, go to work, come back, and hopefully it'll be halfway done. Instead, you just do it with a photo or a GIF. But the problem with a photo is it starts, revealing itself from the top down. So by the time you get, to the chest, you might be like, all right, we're doing pretty good. But then you still got to go below the waist. And there might be a surprise in there that you weren't counting on.
Dan. That's why you should leave your stuff here's the thing, be open-minded. If you're into it, just let it load, baby. Let it load.
Yeah.
Well,
Dan.
I think part of the problem that was really bad about it was the fact that, you're saying like, okay, well, be open-minded about it, but it's like, you're mad because you're like, oh, I didn't want that thing in there. I wanted it normal. And then you notice it like,
what is normal?
Plus, why has it got to be so much bigger than mine?
Well, I don't know what's normal, but if you were, I just want to say, if you're feeling it, you're feeling it. I've come to grips with my sexuality in my later years that I'm like, I'm into all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm into that. You just gotta play it. Just play it open. You never know.
I'm just glad you were able to come to grips with your sexuality despite Tom Leykis' best efforts.
Dude, Tom Leykis about wrecked my shit, and I'm only now just releasing the grasp from the heteronormativity of Tom Leykis trying to ruin my life.
I like to think that we've all evolved, past some of those things, because in your career, whatever it is, you want to be able to evolve, improve, get better. So you started out as a listener of our Crazy Pants show back in the day, whereas now you fast forward and you and your co-host on Sinisterhood have reached some amazing heights. You basically are now, like I said, the tables have been turned. You used to listen to us on the radio, and at that time we were kind of like, oh, we're number one. We're doing these great radio things. Now things have gone reversed. We're no longer on the radio, and we're looking up at shows like yours thinking, how do we get to there? Because the idea is to eventually not have to worry about any other side hustles or any other jobs. You can just focus on your podcast and make a living at it, and you're doing it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it. And it's just, I mean, I told you this is how we connected, as I wrote you an email being like, huge fan of the show. And it was genuinely, I emailed you from a place of gratitude but for listening to you guys and also Kid Craddock in the morning growing up, which I just saw his daughter, she has a podcast, and this whole month she's doing like a in memorial. So I'm going to listen to that, because listening to all that radio growing up really helped. And yeah, you're right. Now being able to do this full time, and I practiced law for 6-7 years before quitting practicing law full time to do this. And now I pretty much, the only law stuff I do is for the show, for the entity, that we're running now. And my husband and I have a media company where we produce films and stuff. So it's been great. Yeah, you're right. It's cool the way the landscape's turning, but you guys are evolving, content wise and platform wise and all that. So it's great to see the moves.
It's just great to have, if I can be so bold as to say, Trey and I now have, a big sister show that we've never actually had.
Yeah.
I thought of you guys as big brothers, honestly. Of like, that's my big brothers. They're so wild. They're always doing wild, crazy stuff. Oh, I love that. Well, how nice. Well,
yeah. So now, what we have now, Trey, is our big little sisters. It's like they're bigger than us, but they're younger than us, which makes it even tougher to swallow.
Stop.
Well, for me, what I'm now is like, I feel like now we're the parents, and she's the kid trying to teach us how to use the internet, and then it's like it'd be like me go, oh, okay, here, just use America Online. Here, just use that. It's all in one.
Why did you have to go and make it way worse, Trey? I liked my assessment, and my assessment made me feel okay with things, and you saw me down there and you stomped right on my throat.
I'm
Honestly,
older than
Trey,
you, so shut up.
But earlier when you were like asking, we were talking about our different tech specs. I was about to be like, do you want me to come over and set your computer up for you? But genuine question, do you want me to come over and help set your computer up for you?
I haven't used this.
To shut up.
I haven't used this yet today. Let me see if I can find this here. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Heather.
Got my first one.
Do you feel like part of the Treehouse now?
Do.
Thank you, Heather.
You're in the Treehouse. Visit us online at treehouseonair.com.